You're listening to the Sass Says podcast. I'm your host, Christy Rocha, also known as Sass. I identify as a woman, a wife, and a mother. That should tell you a lot already. And over the last few years, I've learned the value of talk therapy. I have seen how my inner work not only enhances my own well-being, but also my marriage, my parenting, my relationships. And in fact, you wouldn't be hearing this right now if it weren't for the work I've done. My mission is to debunk the misconceptions and stigmas around what therapy is and who it's for. Let's normalize working on our mental health and seeking help when needed. We've all heard of self-care, self-help, and self-love, but do you often wonder how to actually make it all happen? I do. You'll hear strategy-based conversations with professionals, as well as inspiring and validating stories from women who are just like you and me. Think of this podcast as the weekly therapy sessions you didn't know you needed, with a dash of sass, a lot of vulnerability, and me, relentlessly asking, but how? Hi. Okay, so today I'm joined by Christine Michel Carter, the #1 global voice for working moms. Christine is a best-selling author, consumer marketing expert, a senior contributor to ForbesWomen, and mommy to 2 cute kids. She's been featured in the New York Times and the Washington Post. She created the first national Mommy and Me professional development networking event called Mompreneur and Me, which was featured in Adweek and Entrepreneur. Christine has also worked with the Congressional Caucus on Black women and girls, the U.S. Department of Labor, and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce on maternal and childcare-related issues. Okay, it keeps going though. She's also worked on the maternal initiatives of Vice President Kamala Harris and received a congressional citation from the U.S. Senate for going, quote, above and beyond in ensuring that Black moms and moms of color have access to important health information for their children and families, end quote. Boom. Yeah, okay. So Christine and I get into most of this. As you can imagine, I had tons of questions. We also talk about her personal experience as a single mother, how she deals with her anxiety, how she dealt with a depressed and alcoholic ex-husband, and how she prioritizes her relationship with her kids above all else. Christine, you're amazing, okay? I love you, and this conversation is so great. You guys, it's just the best. I'm so excited for you to hear it. And as always, stay tuned after for my final thoughts. Hey, Christine, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
I am just so impressed by you, and I have kind of broken up how I want to go about today between sort of your personal story and then what you do professionally. And I know that there's probably a ton of overlap there, but I think for those listening and a little bit more for me, if you wouldn't mind, take me through your story a little bit. You're a single mom. You've got 2 great kids. How did you get to where you and I are sitting here today?
Oh my God, Christy. Like, I'm 35 years old. So going back, no, I started in consumer marketing at 21 years old. I worked for a retailer and just fell in love with consumer marketing. I was focused on, from there I left and started my own firm, and I was focused on Generation Y and bringing Generation Y into retail shops. And now they're called millennials, and just millennials went through different life stages. I would write about them, research them, etc. And once they became mothers, you know, I became a mother at the same time. And I realized that that was probably one of, if not the most critical life stage that my generation was going through. Mm-hmm. And I started to research just how working mothers were treated professionally, some of the unconscious and conscious biases associated with being a mother, the preconceived notions that people had about mothers in the workplace, and just became so passionate about it. So I wrote a book, children's book, Can Mommy Go to Work?, to help teach our children about the importance of working moms. And then I wrote Mom AF to share my experiences with other mothers so that they could just find humor and relate to it. And continue to write for ForbesWomen as a contributor about mothers in the workplace in different places, different publications, and then also work with like the Department of Labor and the Chamber of Commerce. And I've received a congressional citation. So I continue to try and elevate the voices and share pertinent information about working moms, basically. And then I am a single mom. I wasn't always a single mom. I was married for many years and got divorced, and I couldn't be happier that I am divorced. I have a 10-year-old girl named Maya and a 6-year-old son named Wes.
It's beautiful. Actually, I listened to your episode with Michelle Dempsey, and yes. I now can see the whole time she's like, I can see your beautiful kids behind you. And I'm thinking, are they being that quiet while they're interviewing? I don't understand. But now I can see that you have those beautiful photos behind you.
Yes.
That's so good.
Yes.
So, oh my goodness, so much there. Okay. So one of the things that comes to mind for me as you're talking, and I'll start here. There's, out of everything you said, there's a million directions I want to go, but just that's right on the tip of my brain here is being this voice for moms, being this voice for working moms, and all of the amazing work that you're doing. I'm wondering, you, Christine, as a person, how do you cope with potentially what seems like there would be a lot of pressure around that? Like, does that get to you? How do you do that? How do you manage that?
Not at all, because I am so motivated by the other women that I get to meet and that I get to share their stories. So, and I can honestly say that because I had therapy this morning at 9. So I'm pretty, but I never feel the pressure to be the global voice or anything like that. I feel the pressure to make sure I am accurately telling another woman's story. So often I interview females who are CEOs and working mothers, but I also might interview somebody for a lifestyle publication like Parents or Essence who might be recently divorced or overcoming postpartum depression. And where I feel the most pressure is to make sure that I am accurately telling their story. And it is because I want other women to see themselves. I want to be the bridge and connect other women to these women that I am interviewing so that they can see themselves and know that they're not alone. So that's what I take so seriously.
I mean, that's everything, right? I mean, I think particularly when women become moms, or just anyone in that maternal role, whether you actually gave birth to them or not, I mean, you truly start to understand and appreciate the power that women have, particularly when we come together and support each other. And
absolutely.
And it's so ingrained in us initially to not feel that way, to not be supportive, and to not look to each other for help.
Yeah, and it's a shame. And to go back to your point, even those who are caregivers for friends or family members, because the majority of women take on that role as well. There's just always an opportunity for us. It's always amazing at the power of women and just the amount of empathy that they have. And I could go on and on about that, but you're absolutely right. Like, we come from a place of strength, and we think that power is something that is achieved alone, and completing tasks is something that is achieved alone. And I am constantly trying to beat into women's heads that not only are not alone, but you're not going to succeed unless you work with another mother, more than likely, unless you find community.
Yeah. And I know you've interviewed some amazing women, our vice president being one of them. I mean, what an experience. Can you talk about that and what her career just means for women in the BIPOC community?
Yeah, what an experience. So what I hold so dear about that experience is the fact that I'm not necessarily Gayle King or Oprah there's no reason that she had to give me an interview for Parents Magazine. Still, Black mothers and the way that they are disproportionately treated by our medical community was of the utmost importance to her, and of so much importance that she granted me the interview and was going to allow me to interview her again. But I couldn't make it work for my Forbes line. So just, I could not believe how overly accommodating she was. And I hold that experience dear because it truly shows no matter how much power you have. And we know that she has quite a bit. You know, she is the vice leader, if not the leader of the free world. I'm sure she is impacting more policy than we even realize. But she still took time to have a conversation with me. And that means a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm learning a lot more about the disproportionate care and attention in especially the mental health realm.
Yeah.
It's I don't know if you have any. You mentioned going to therapy. I mean, that's wonderful. And I interviewed a therapist, Dr. Holly, and she's like, I became a therapist because I was a Black woman looking for a Black woman therapist and couldn't find one. And she's like, it's enough. Like,
4% are Black. It's ridiculous.
It's
such a number. And the only reason I know that off the top of my head is I'm actually working on a piece for Essence Magazine about how Black mothers have changed in the middle of this pandemic. And one of the factors is that while many were already seeking therapy, 25% decided that it was time to go to therapy. And I feel like, and the therapists that I interviewed felt like because you had to sit still with yourself in quarantine, that it unearthed a lot of generational trauma. It unearthed what truly meant to be happy. It unearthed burnout. Exactly.
Yeah.
So while it's commonplace, you know, for white moms, it's really not. It's still kind of taboo for Black moms, especially generationally. Our moms never, you know, were in therapy. So that I applaud her for going in because, like I said, just 4% are Black, and there is something in having someone who truly, truly understands you when you're going through therapy, for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, I find some of the most comforting moments, just speaking from my own experience, is when I start to say something, and my therapist, who very much sees me eye to eye, she has small children, we grew up within minutes of each other, coincidentally. And, you know, she'll be like, I get it. You don't have to say anything else, you know? And it's like, okay, good. You know, I don't have to go into the nuances. I don't have to justify everything unless I want to, or unless she thinks it's necessary to. But there's certain aspects of our experience that she just gets. And so I can understand how necessary it is for growth and to have that be a vulnerable place and a safe space.
Right.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So we're talking about working moms. In your opinion, what are some of the non-negotiables that need to happen for moms and women in the workplace that just aren't there yet?
Yeah. So there are, I say that it's kind of like it's cyclical. So there are things that the mother needs to do. There are things that we need done from a policy perspective within the government. And then there's things that corporations have to do. And for the mothers, I think that too many of us hide ourselves in the workplace and do not bring our authentic selves to work. And we do not use our empathy as a positive skill that we have. That's a great leadership trait. And I feel like bringing your authentic self to work and saying that you're a mother and setting clear objectives and expectations about your work schedule, that's something that needs to happen. And there are too many women in the workplace trying to perform like the white male, non-children having CEO leaders. And that just does nothing but make you mask and cover yourself. And we've seen in other circles how marginalized groups, when they cover themselves, it just leads to more stress on their mental health. So that's the first thing. With regards to the government, I mean, how hard is it to freaking give us sick leave, paid family, You know, I mean, it has shown to reduce COVID in certain states. We need some type of universal federal law for that. That's the biggest to me. I think that would be a big burden off of a lot of women's shoulders. And then for corporations, offering a suite of holistic benefits for moms, not just necessarily moms who have just given birth, but services like I love employee assistance programs that offer therapy for the children as well as the mother, or international milk shipping for the mothers who have to travel internationally for their work, or even domestically for their work. So there are so many benefits out there that companies really aren't leveraging just because of what's been historically done within the organization or what their outdated and antiquated benefits employer is offering.
Yeah.
So there's done across the board.
Yeah, and I heard you say once that, which is such a simple thing, but it made so much sense, that you're like, we should just never be scheduling meetings after 3 p.m. Just
yeah.
Like,
right.
Not only because that's the time, like that's the time when anyone's brain starts to shut down, right? But also, if a mom needs to get somewhere, it's generally after 3 o'clock. So let's just stop with that. Yeah.
That is still a common practice. I mean, I understand that everybody has different schedules, and certainly there are some moms who can stay up late, and then there are some who work early. And I think that typically mothers are the ones who are getting up a lot earlier, so they're the ones who are most productive at the start of the day. But like you said, not just moms, dads have, they're pitching in. There are some dads who are pitching in. So there are obligations after 3. Exactly. I don't, it makes no sense to me. It's almost like it's a test, like it's a bluff, like you're calling someone's bluff of their dedication to the workplace by holding a meeting after 3.
Yeah. And as you're talking, I mean, I'm just thinking about how our systems, the way they're set up for women to fail unless we fight through them. And it's enough. What do we do about it? Like, what does a person like me do about it? How do we start to really make change for our whole society?
Right. It definitely starts at the individual level. I mean, there are many women who have come before us, and I know many female CEOs, like, look at the CEO of Bumble, who was on the cover of a magazine pregnant and went through an IPO pregnant. There are many women who are taking their own individual strides and stepping into their truth and their authenticity again. And as you see that, it becomes more normal for the general population. That's truly the way to cause that societal shift. And thankfully, things are a lot better than they were 10 years ago. When I gave birth to Maya, I've written about this. I had to pump in a bathroom stall because the organization didn't really have a place for me to pump and didn't follow the Fair Labor Standards Act. So I had to advocate for myself. But it's women like me who are advocating in their workplace and bringing their authentic selves that will change it for all of us.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. And I really applaud you. You're touching on so many different pain points in the work that you do. You have your books, which anyone can order and learn from. You have your writing, which is reaching just so many women. And I got chills actually reading about your Mompreneur and Me program. I mean, it's amazing. So it's the nation's first free, which is like, oh my God, what is free anymore? Nothing.
Right.
Mommy and Me professional networking events, right?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I mean, that's everything, right? Like, you can bring your kid to network, and there's activities for them and get their energy out, and you're still, I think you're right. I think, one of the things that, and I'm a little all over the place at the moment, I apologize, but when you said about empathy, I think that is one of the greatest powers that mothers can bring to the workforce, because I know from my own experience, my level of empathy just skyrocketed when I became a mom. You just have a better understanding of human beings and what they need. And to be able to combine those things with your events and just, oh, I love it. There's not even a question there. It's just amazing.
Very much. That goes back to your early question about, do I ever feel pressure in me saying, no, I just want to tell the story right? I love going to those events and putting on those events in different cities and hearing each woman's story. I love that. I don't know. I'm an introvert, so I don't enjoy. It's funny. The part of the Mompreneur and Me events where I have to speak in front of everybody, my brother, my assistant, so he's always like, say something, speak. And I'm like, I don't want to. But I love individually talking to the women. I love hearing everybody's story.
Yeah, no, it's really, it's wonderful. And I guess then maybe I'll ask you, how do you do all of this? How do you, on a really day-to-day, tangible way, get it all done?
There are some trade-offs, obviously. So I have to get up earlier and work later. But I'll give you a prime example. Yesterday, it was 3:00 and I had a full day of work, meetings starting, I think, at like 8. And I was talking to a colleague and I was like, I still have to go to the grocery store with my kids. My daughter wants me to start working out with her. I have to play video games with my son to give him his one-on-one time. And we have to watch a show together. And I still have to write an article. And at 3, I just felt so defeated and tired. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to do it. I'm literally fighting anxiety medication, which is trying to like bring me down. I got to bring my energy back up. And I don't know, it's the mother thing, you know, like we just push through. If there is something you have to do, I find that 9 times out of 10, mothers will push through it and get it done, which is why I don't understand why we're not more appreciated in the workplace. Yeah. But that is honestly how I seem to do it. I am big on time management and I push through. Mm-hmm. You know, there are some things where I have to tell myself, as much as you would like to do that, you have to set boundaries and take that off your plate. Or this is an opportunity for you to teach your children how to be independent. Let them do it on their own. Yeah. Those are the only ways that I am able to do everything.
Yeah, and I heard you say that, you know, that time, what I heard you saying in there was that time with your kids is your priority.
Oh, yeah. Oh, without a doubt. Yeah. That is the number one priority. I could care less if I care about how much money I make, but I could care less if I was the next 20 years or if I was a CEO for the next 20 years. What would matter to me is the amount of time that I spent with my kids. And I think that is the generational trauma and like me growing up with a single working mom and not having, I'm all over the place, but this goes back to your earlier point about how can you make change happen? Think about our mothers and what it was like to be a single working mom in the 80s. And when you think back over the 40 years, we've made quite a bit of change.
Oh, yeah.
Because of those women, I now have the luxury to say I can bring my authentic self to work and my spending time with my children is my priority because I wasn't raised that way. Mm-hmm. But those women make those sacrifices so that I could say that and so that my generation can. That's what you owe it to them to bring your authentic self to work.
Yeah, we're doing everyone a disservice in not, right? And even our kids, because, you know, they're the next round of women and mothers, and, you know, we hope that things just continue to move in a certain direction and not stay stagnant or go back.
Right. That was the whole purpose of Can Mommy Go to Work? So that mothers could teach their children about why moms leave them and go to work, because it's a part of their identity, because it makes them happy. And the book ends with the children trying to improve the mom's day and show that they support her and know how much the day means to her. And that is just as critical.
Yeah. Do your kids understand who you are and what you do? I mean, that must be so cool for them.
So I'm not any big deal, but the kids they wrote Can Mommy Go to Work with Me? And they love taking the book to school. They're still at that age where it's cool to take the book to school. So they love that because they help write.
That's very sweet. So you've mentioned now a few times anxiety meds.
Yeah.
How does anxiety manifest for you? How does it
Oh
show
my
up?
Anxiety, it's almost like it's my alter ego. It's so much a part of my life now. It's crazy. When I was in therapy today, I was telling her how I am working on doing small changes to lead to big changes because I feel like I'm in a rut personally. So I was telling her, like, I come home and I watch the same shows, like The Office, Parks and Rec, American Dad, have those on the TV every single day and night. And I made it a point this past week to just start watching new shows, at least one episode. And even then, I caught myself getting stuck on things because my anxiety didn't want to move on to a new show. I need you to meet my expectations. That's where my anxiety comes out. If I don't know what is going to happen for sure, then my anxiety is coming out. But on the flip side, I'm bored, which is where I am right now in my life. And it's crazy. Even that small change of trying to watch new shows has changed my life drastically. You know, it's so wild. Even just having that in the background has made a difference. It's broken me out of the routine. It's made me now start to take different ways to work or eat different foods instead of eating the same thing every day. And it's absolutely right. The small changes lead to big changes, but I need those small changes or my anxiety, I have found, will take over and then I will also be bored.
Yeah, and it's so true because it's the cycle, right? It's like you get bored, you get in the rut, but then it is one of the hardest things to take yourself out of it.
Yeah.
And it's just perpetuating.
Yeah.
And it's really very true. I don't have the experience of the TV show, but I totally get it. Like just even slightly changing my routine this morning. My alarm went off and I'm like, I don't wanna. I don't wanna
Yeah.
get up and do the same thing I've been doing every day.
Right. And I myself a couple of days, I knew that I had to do something because I was talking to somebody and I was like, it's Thursday. I didn't even know, especially when you're doing just the same monotonous stuff every day. And I've never said that in my 35 years of living. So I was like, you have now auto tuned or whatever, like put your life so on automation as a single mom because I have to control everything. There's nobody helping that I've made myself bored.
Yeah.
I've automated too much of my life.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
fun parts and the personal parts of me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, the good part about this is that you're recognizing it, right? And you already have, the therapy and the
Yeah.
tools, some of them anyway, to start coping and moving
Oh,
out of it.
oh yeah, Chrissy, it's exciting.
Yeah.
I actually think it's because I get to go on a new journey. And the way that my therapist told it to me was like, it's like you're in the fog and you have to figure out which direction to go. And you might end up going one direction and realize there's nothing over there. Then you go to the other. You're going to be shifting for a while, but you're going to find your way. And that's exciting to me because I get to explore different things now and figure out what will bring me happiness. And when that thing stops bringing me happiness and I automate that, now I know that it's just time to start looking again, which is exciting.
Yeah, well, and and we need Christine excited and motivated because the world needs you to keep doing what you're doing. So Christine needs to take care of herself and get back on whatever horse it is that you're on because it is wonderful. I think a lot of what you're saying, people can certainly throughout the pandemic and quarantine relate to just that just routine, the boredom. And I did hear you talk about how when the quarantine first started, you decided very quickly, or you realized very quickly, that virtual school with your kids was just not going to be the top priority, and that prioritizing the well-being of your overall household, their mental health, yours, was it. And what I really took from that, and what I want to ask you is this conviction that you have in your decisions, to even be able to say that out loud and mean it and own it. Where does that come from?
It is something that I have always had in me, quite honestly. It is something that for some reason, for a number of years, I suppressed. But as I had to write Mom AF and like go back and look at my childhood, and as I write articles and tell people my personal story, I realized that I was always advocating for other women or for the Black community. And I have no idea why, when I decided to get married, that I suppressed all of that, because I feel like I wasn't being true to myself and uplifting a man when we should have both been uplifted at the same time. But now that I am divorced, I think that's why I say I'm happy about being divorced, because I feel like there are parts of my personality that no longer need to be suppressed. And when I was growing up, I didn't care what people thought. And I feel like post-divorce, I don't care what people think now. You're not running my household. I'm running my household. I have to be worried about how my children feel. And no, I was not concerned about their education as much as their mental health, because guess what? 10 years from now, they won't remember what happened in the 4th grade and in kindergarten. So what does it matter? Do any of us use the math from 4th grade? No.
No, we have phones. Yeah.
What they will remember is their mother running around like a frantic mess, and how that was the time that they realized they couldn't confide in their mother. This year is a catalyst for the relationships with our kids. It'll either be moving forward, we will be closer to our children because we spend more time with them, or they will realize that they can't come to us in times of crisis because of how we handle this situation. So for me, it was more important to preserve my mental health, have the nanny, make sure that I was still a great mom to them and not super focused on education or my career.
Do you have any advice for someone hearing that and going, I probably could have done a better job at that this last year? Do you have any advice for someone hearing that and just going, how do I repair?
Yeah, I would definitely say see a therapist so you could talk it out. But there's always time to repair. I think with children, if you have young children, there's always time to repair. And then you can confess up. Like I can't tell you how many times my kids hold me accountable for stuff. My daughter you said you were going to work out this morning. And I'm like, you're absolutely right. I tell them all the time, I happen to be a human who had you guys, just like my mother was a human who had me. I wasn't born into being a mother or a parent. I'm trying to figure this out based off of the environment that I put you in as much as I can, just like she did. And she did the best in the environment that she was in. So I just try to have honest and transparent conversations with my kids. And that's what I would tell the mom is just admit to your mistake with your children and say, moving forward, I'm going to do a better job of connecting with you and having a closer relationship with you.
Yeah. Because with kids, they're so resilient. It doesn't take much, right?
All it takes is honesty, honestly, because they are so resilient. It just takes honesty with them.
Yeah. And so how much of your divorce and that period of time in your life are your kids privy to? How much did you share with them? Talk to me about that.
So I divorced from my ex-husband because he had a problem with alcohol. And in the beginning of the separation, I tried very hard to keep that information from my children, which was leaving them in the dark, leaving them confused, it caused my daughter to now still have anxiety because she didn't know what the future held. She was just moved from her house into an apartment and now into the house we live in. So I wish I don't know, you always as a mother wish you could go back and handle things differently, but how I handled it was probably the best way I could have handled it.
Mm-hmm.
Over time, because of his problems with alcohol, he exposed the kids to the issue and the reason we divorced. So it became something that I couldn't hide from them or shield from them. And I am an overprotective parent. I didn't want them to know that part. But as a result, because of the reason that I divorced, they're very aware of the divorce and what happened and everything. As I talk with my therapist, we discussed it today, like it makes me sad that this is the world that they live in and this is the environment that they know, like having an alcoholic dad, but I can only protect them so much.
Yeah.
You know, it just is what.
Yeah, and I had a conversation yesterday with Dr. Cohen. She's the divorce doctor. And
Okay.
and she was saying that, kids, when, even though, like you're saying, that environment is not ideally maybe what you would have wanted for them, right? But she's like, what's so wonderful is that they actually get to is an interesting way to phrase it. I'm sorry, but they're able to sort of flex mental muscles now as kids that most of us don't have to until we're much older, and it becomes much harder. And so they're building that resilience at a much younger age than most of us, because a lot of us get to a certain age and we're like, oh, I have feelings. Oh, I have to deal with things. And you being so open with them, and obviously, it, like you said, I'm not here to say anything about your situation and your kids. I don't even know them, other than it sounds like the environment that you're creating for them is going to make them just really strong individuals. And that, yeah, I mean, they have you, so.
I really appreciate that. And maybe that's why I do feel comfortable sharing my voice, because I came from a divorced household. So that could very well be the case. And I had to develop those emotions and find myself at an early age too. So perhaps you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. I also, so you've talked about before how, your worth as a woman was more than the marriage that you were in. And I thought that was a really profound way of stating that you just really didn't feel like yourself in your marriage. Do you now, in hindsight, have anything that you could tell a woman who's maybe in the shoes that you were in years ago when you were really struggling with that?
That's literally why I wrote Mom AF, because I made, and the idea of the book wasn't even to do that. It was supposed to be a book about like the similarities between me and my grandmother, because we were close. And then over time, like I said, as I started to look back at my life and how it truly shaped my marriage and who I was, I realized that there was just something greater to that book than the relationship between me and my grandmother. So the book talks about my anxiety and how it manifested in me trying to be the perfect professional and the perfect wife, and trying to shield my children from their father's alcohol problem and trying to support him through that, and how I was trying to find support in other people, and how I was trying so hard to apply business practices to my marriage, and how I was just trying until one day I had to sit with myself after our separation and just sit and realize, who was this person that I had become, and why was I fighting so hard for this marriage? And was there a possibility that my husband was put in my life to be the person who gave me my children, and not necessarily my husband till the end of time? So there's doubt in that book. There's a lot of doubt. And I think that that's why so many women resonate with it, and can relate to it. So that's probably what I would tell those women, is like, Mom AF. That's the advice that I give you. It's like, I basically documented how you feel. Is that just how it simply it is. I've documented probably how a lot of women feel if they're married still or not, how I fought therapy, like every part of it.
What made you end up going? What
To
was it?
therapy.
Yeah, what was the shift there?
Yeah. So, gosh, so I had gone on and off in my marriage. And once we separated and divorced, I felt like I wasn't going to be able to see that therapist anymore because it was a marriage counselor. And B, I was like, well, does it really work if I'm still not married to my husband? Because we don't. But I decided, like, I had tried everything, and I said, fine, I'll just go ahead and go to therapy and give it a shot and go back to the therapist. And she said I could still see her. And I found I've been going for years now. And what I found is the beauty of it is just having somebody to talk to, having another mother who understands. I've built a history with her so she can, go back to certain things that we've discussed, or she knows about my family and who I'm talking about. And she is a third party. It's truly objective, and I love it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's sometimes even just, I don't know, especially after this past year, it was like someone to talk to, right?
Right.
Like just to even, it felt social, even though it's not, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's sometimes just like like another adult,
Right. Oh God. How many times have we felt that way?
Yeah.
Sometimes, yeah, especially during the pandemic, like when you're only surrounded by children. Every now and again, I would go into the office and just be like, adults,
yes.
like scream it from the top of my lungs because I was so excited to talk to adults.
Yeah. Yeah. It's partly why I'm doing this. I want to ask you, you're very vocal about, being a single mom and a strong mom. And I wonder though, does it bother you to be asked, now that I've just done it for the last few minutes, but does it bother you to be asked about your marriage and your ex-husband? And does it feel in any way like it's taking away from who you are today?
No. And I wouldn't discuss all of this if I didn't have his approval. So when I was writing Mom AF, I was like, maybe I shouldn't write this book and tell everybody, because at that time people didn't know that he had the problem. And I married him knowing he had the problem. So I had known it for years. And he was like, no, I think you should write it. I think you should tell our story. And I don't have a problem with it. And to this day, I believe he's read the book. He can see everything I post on social, of course. He can read any article. Marriage was hard for us. We were babies when we got married. I got married in my early 20s. I had my daughter at 25 and my son at 29. And I didn't know who I was then. And I'm barely discovering at 35 who I am now. And he was going through the same thing. His depression manifested in a different way. Mm. And I don't know too many men who would tell everybody I'm an alcoholic and tell my story. So for that, I respect him a great deal. He is still the father of my children, and we had a marriage that lasted pretty long. I'll probably never get married again. Mm. So he holds a special place in my heart, and I appreciate and I honor that. So it's not uncomfortable at all.
Yeah. And now that you said it, I'm curious because I've dealt with some depression, and one of the hardest things about it truly was trying to describe it to my husband in a way that made sense, in a way that did it justice, because he never had that experience to the extent that I have. I think everyone experiences depressed moments, right?
Yeah, everybody does.
Right. Mm-hmm. But there were times where I know he's looking at me like, well, just get up. And it's like, I can't. And I wonder if in the role reversal here, in your case, as the partner to someone going through and struggling with depression, I just wonder what that's like, and how you saw it and what you did about it, and I don't know.
Yeah, so every situation is different, of course, but I was absolutely like your husband. I Depression, they say, is living in the past, and anxiety is living in the future. So I'm constantly worried about what is going to happen, and depression is constantly regretting what has already happened.
Mm.
And I couldn't understand his depression because I was in anxiety. I was go, 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 push, push, push. You got to push through it, go on to the next thing. I couldn't understand that he was still dwelling on past things. And he also had never communicated to me how bad his depression was until the very end of the marriage. And by that point, it was too late. I was very concerned that he was going to do irreparable damage to our children. So I understand where your husband is coming from, but I also applaud you for being vocal and transparent with him. Because for too long in my marriage, both of us weren't doing that. And that's what was making the divide bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah, yeah, it's challenging. I think just again from my personal experience, because I also understand the anxiety piece. I also have been there,
Yeah.
and so I think where there was depression and it was postpartum, so I do feel as though I've gotten over that hump, so to speak, and I am on medication and things that certainly help, but I think it was just so out of character for me, because if I lean anyway, I lean towards the anxiety, hyperactive, we got to get this done, the hypervigilance. And
yeah.
So to see me kind of in that complete opposite state, my husband was just like, I just, what? What's happening here? So it always is curious to me from the opposite perspective, because I think it is important to share both, because we really, especially in a partnership, especially when there are kids involved, you really need that other person to maybe not fully get it, but at least understand how they can be supportive.
Right. Understand where you're coming from to know how they can be supportive. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my goodness. It's heavy. And I feel like talking about it is great. And I just want to do more, though.
Yeah.
That's why go ahead.
Heavy. It's heavy, but it's normal. And just discussing it and having a podcast about it and allowing another woman to hear that she's not alone, I can't tell you how much of a difference that makes.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And then kind of I want to go back a bit to what you're doing in the world and ask you, what have been maybe one of or a couple, whatever comes to mind, anything truly surprised you about the work that you do? Any experiences that have been like, whoa, I didn't expect that?
So I think what comes to mind is like, when you're growing up, they're urban legends, and then to find out that they are real is surprising and disheartening. So you grow up as like a Black woman and you hear that society doesn't treat Black women as equally as it treats white women or women of other races. But to actually start to comb through data and see those alarming numbers and read case studies and the experiences that women have had and interview women about their experiences, and to see that not only carry into like how they're treated medically, but how they're treated in the workplace as well, how their children are treated. It's like the urban legend is real. And it was heartbreaking for me. It was like how the rest of the world felt when the civil unrest happened last year and came to the forefront. But that's years of me dealing with that and years of me uncovering truth to that. So that is probably the most disheartening thing, is to see how my community is treated and how it impacts generations.
Yeah, no, it's definitely been. I'll be honest, it's been an eye-opening year, and
Yeah.
I can feel my body even now just kind of tensing up and
Yeah.
wanting to be. I was going to say wanting to say and do the right thing, but really what I'm learning is that you really, the best thing you can be is really just where you are and own wherever that is. And if
Yeah.
that's, in my case, still very much learning and educating myself, and that's where I am. And that's, and I can certainly be actively involved in not adding harm or in damaging things, and I wouldn't, it's not even my nature to think that way, but
Yeah.
I think that's what's been particularly interesting for me about, the social awakening, as you said, is just going, let me really start to look at my education, whether it was formal or culturally or community, and where I maybe got certain thoughts and feelings and ideas about things, and did I choose them, or is it just what I know, and really getting to work.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you this, in the past year, what a year, right? I have learned the power of my voice, and not necessarily because I write, but the power of my voice because God gave it to me, like every other human. We all have voices. And this year has made me realize how much empathy is still needed in the world, and why we had to go through such a horrific pandemic to see that we still need a lot of empathy. So even for me, it made me realize that I should be using the power of my voice to help those who can't use their own voices. So, not necessarily just the Black community, but if I'm at work and I'm the only woman in the room and I know that there's another woman who should be in that room, how am I bringing that woman's voice and giving that woman credit in that room? How am I elevating the voices of the Asian community? Because they've gone through so much too. I'm a multicultural marketer by day. So, how can I make sure that everyone's perspective is included in the room? And I couldn't put a term to it until I did a podcast with another woman, Dr. Jen, and she was an older white woman, and she said that the past year has made her come into the realization that when she's in the room, she has a responsibility to speak for all of the other women or all the other marginalized groups who aren't in that room, and advocate for them to be in that room. And that's pretty much exactly what I try to do now.
Yeah. No, it's really powerful what can be done in such seemingly small moments, right? That just have like these ripple effect.
Yes. It's the small moments. We keep saying it. It's the small moments.
Yeah. Yeah, I really I think really realizing my part in it, whether it was conscious or unconscious, and just wanting to be better. Just be better, all around.
There's always a new day to be better. There's always a new day, God willing. Yes.
Yeah. I'm wondering, in your big picture plan for yourself in the work you're doing, what role are you ultimately filling? Like, I know you're a writer, and it's funny to me, I didn't expect you to say that you were, an introvert, because I'm like, is this woman going to be running for office or something one day? But like, where do you see yourself?
So I'm the worst with that question. For somebody who has anxiety and has to plan aspect of their life, anytime somebody asks me my long-term career goals or where I see myself in 5 or 10 years, I never have an answer, ever. And I would never run for office. And I've said this because I would be so corrupt. Okay. If you threw a McDonald's quarter pounder my way, forget it. You're getting, but I have no idea what the end goal is, again, because my children are at the epicenter and of everything I do. My only goal is their happiness. It truly is. I don't have any career goals, anything like this. I'm open to any opportunity that comes my way. The only thing that I know for sure, and my North Star, is that I need to have a very close and intimate relationship with my children. That's it.
It's awesome. It's awesome because it's really, and even though I think most of us who have the experience of being a mom would say that our kids are everything and our first priority and everything you just said so eloquently, I feel like because it's so undervalued and so unappreciated that we can often get a little lost on that goal too, and we can start to think, wow, in order to matter in this world, I have to be more than mom. And it's kind of like, well, you don't really.
You don't. You so don't. And I have so much respect for stay-at-home moms because people do not realize how much a mother, whether in the office or not, influences their children professionally. So statistically, it shows like CEOs, they tend to learn their leadership skills like empathy and kindness from their mothers, even their mothers who were stay-at-home mothers. So those women are truly doing God's work. Aside from raising kids, I don't know how they do it because I'm telling you, during the pandemic, as much as I love my children, I could have thrown them out the window. But they get up every day and do that. Like the pandemic is their life. And I'm like, how in the world do you do that? And how do you have respect for me? Like all I do is presentations all day. You are literally shaping somebody's life. You are the one who deserves the most respect, not me.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you that it's, as someone who's really been a stay-at-home mom, it's women like you who remind us of our worth. So you have respect for us, and you know what? We have respect for you, because if you weren't out there doing what you're doing, we really would just get lost in the Paw Patrol and the blocks and the Play-Doh. We just, it's really women like you who help us keep our eye on the prize sometimes of, that there is a greater, I don't know, there's life that's greater than what our daily chicken nuggets routine is.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. I appreciate it.
It's like we said before, when women, no matter what role you're filling in the society, if we can come together, we all need each other, and we'll all fulfill different roles, and that's important.
It is. It's very important to have community. It is very important.
Yeah. And Christine, is there anything that I didn't ask you today that you would have asked yourself, or anything you want to make sure to kind of get in here into this conversation?
Probably not. I always say my kids are the cutest kids on the planet. So that's probably it. I'll just say that.
Well, they are very cute. As we said before, I can see them. They're very cute.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I'm going to, for everyone, link everything in the show notes, your resources, your books. Your Instagram is amazing. Everyone needs to go follow you. And really, this was a really great conversation. And I think just the tip of the iceberg in a lot of ways. So thank you so much. It's really given at least me quite a few areas to think about, and where we could kind of push these movements forward.
I appreciate the conversation. It definitely reignited certain aspects of what I do. And like Mompreneur Me, I forgot how just having this conversation with you, Chrissy, reminded me how much I love connecting with other women. And I have, I can't wait for this pandemic to allow us to be together so that I can do the events again, because I think that that's one aspect that's truly missing in my life, the ability to help women all across the country and connect with them. So thank you for reminding me about that.
Oh my goodness. I'm like, ooh, you're welcome. Well, and I just will say, on that note, I was talking to another mom today, which was so out of my comfort zone, right? Like we were just at the library and I was like, hi, and she was like, oh, hi, but it was like very exciting for both of us. And we both were just saying how this pandemic and the quarantine has made us feel like we don't know how to socialize anymore.
Yeah. On top of the fact that mothers already felt lonely and isolated.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we need those events. We need those, because when it's up to us, we may not reach out to each other. But if it's organized and it's set up and it's like, listen, honey, get a babysitter, do what you got to do. Right. This is happening.
I have a babysitter for you at those events. Exactly.
Oh my God, duh. That's the whole point. Hello, Christy. I'm like so used to that wavelength of needing it, but we don't. I love it. Yep. All right. Well, thank you so much again.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
All right. So I know I'm going to get some heat from any Gen Z listeners, and it's probably chuggy to say this, but what a boss. Yeah, a boss. Oh my goodness. So good, right? And you know what? That being said, despite Christine's exceptional resume, at the end of the day, she is simply Christine, a working single mom of two, juggling all the balls in the air just like the rest of us. A theme that flowed through the conversation was storytelling. Christine is a fantastic writer and storyteller by nature and by profession. She also said that she loves to connect with women one-on-one so that she can truly hear, learn, and share their stories. And Christine so willingly and vulnerably shares her own story. Sometimes I wonder about my own story and the reason I'm even doing this show. But then I re-listen to this conversation and I'm reminded of the power that storytelling has. Here we have Christine, a powerhouse businesswoman, marketer, voice for women, and she keeps coming back to the idea of storytelling time and time again. So if you needed a sign to share your story, if you've been on the fence, or you just don't think it matters, this is it. This is the sign. We need to hear each other's stories to know that we're not alone and so that we can enact change where it's needed. So I also want to take this time and this opportunity to say that every person's story matters. But some of our mamas need our help more than others. It was so moving to hear Christine talk about her own realization when she really started to deep dive into her work and learned that the urban legend that Black women are underserved in just about every aspect of life is true. I don't know about you, but this is absolutely unacceptable in my mind. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. We are stronger together. The quote-unquote system is designed to be more challenging for women because the white men who created it knew that if we were all on their same playing field, that we'd blow them out of the water every time. And if you agree, help me in channeling this energy the next time you're the only woman in a meeting. How can you bring another woman's voice into that room? Give her credit. How can you speak up for the women who aren't in that room? And you can apply this to any situation that suits you. But I really loved, Christine's example of, when she's the only woman in a meeting, she's thinking about her colleagues. What work have they done? How can I give them credit? How can I bring their name up? And I think that it's really just on all of us. We have to be responsible. Anyway, all right, Christine, I'm fired up. Let's change the world. And I want you listening to do it too and be there with us. And thank you all so much. Thank you, Christine, and thank you for listening. I'm out. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Sass Says is a production of Luann Nigara, Inc. This podcast is meant to be educational and not meant to replace professional therapy or professional medical attention. To learn more about today's show and what's new in my world, head over to sasssays.com. Thanks so much. Talk later.